Doug Weiss walked away from his 36-year marriage and married Joni Lamb, but little did he know that this one decision would spark a scandal like nothing he's ever faced before. Before all this, Doug had a spotless online image. He was in full control of how people saw him. A respected counselor with a long, successful career. If you tried to look him up, it was nearly impossible to find anything negative about him. But was that because everyone loved his counseling methods? Not exactly. Turns out, plenty of people had complaints, especially about the strange counseling practices at Heart to Heart. But those complaints never gained traction because Doug was actively scrubbing the internet of any negative feedback. Many women who attended Heart to Heart have since come forward, confirming that any criticism of Doug Weiss was quickly wiped away. Just like he did before, Doug Weiss is now scrubbing the internet again, but this time he's erasing anything that paints Lisa Weiss in a positive light. If you've followed Doug for a while, you know that in almost every seminar, interview, and talk show, he couldn't stop praising Lisa. He constantly called her the ideal wife. The perfect example of what a godly woman should be. And it wasn't just something he said here and there. His admiration for Lisa was everywhere. There were Facebook posts, Medium articles, blog posts, and even other bloggers who promoted his words about Lisa being the best wife. But now, all of that is slowly disappearing. It's not a coincidence. Doug is rewriting history. He wants to erase any proof that he once loved, respected, and admired Lisa, because it doesn't fit his new narrative. The same Lisa he praised for years as the perfect wife is now suddenly an abuser, and we're just supposed to forget everything he said before? Doug thought he could quietly delete the past and that no one would notice, but people are paying attention. The more he tries to erase, the more obvious it becomes that he's hiding something. On August 8th, 2017, Doug Weiss published an article on Medium and his official website, drdougweiss.com, titled "When the Devil Talks to Your Wife." Fast forward to November 11th, 2019, and he was still actively sharing this article, even posting an excerpt from it on the Heart to Heart Counseling Center Facebook page. But here's where it gets interesting. If you click the link today that was supposed to open the article on drdougweiss.com, you'll get a 404 error message, meaning the page no longer exists. Now, mistakes happen, links get broken, and websites get updated. But wait a minute, this same article was also published on Medium by Doug himself. In fact, someone recently took a screenshot proving that it was there just a few days ago. But as of right now, if you check Doug Weiss's list of published articles from 2017 on Medium, this article is completely gone. So that leaves us with one big question. Why is this article missing? And more importantly, what was in this article that Doug doesn't want people to see? Luckily for us, some bloggers promoted it back in the day, and we still have copies of the full article. One version was even published by Charisma magazine under the title, "Husbands, Stop Letting the Devil Accuse Your Wife." Now, let's take a look at what Doug wrote in this article. And once you see it, you'll understand exactly why he's trying so hard to erase it. I remember one day, probably over 10 years ago, I was driving home from work. All of a sudden, a stream of thoughts of what my wife wasn't came into my mind. The list seemed intense, long, and really let me feel hopeless that I would ever be truly happy. Then I realized that these were not my thoughts or feelings toward my precious bride. Then, more importantly, I realized that they were not even true. As a Christian counselor, I have heard men repeat similar experiences. The devil talks to them about their wife's weight, clothes, sex life, cooking, cleaning, lack of appreciation for who he is, or all the work he does for her. He can never make her happy, and the list goes on and on. This is the devil and company talking about your wife. Remember Revelation 12:10, the devil is the accuser of the brethren. I think we know brethren includes all Christians, especially our godly, beautiful wives. The next step of this conversation that the devil wants you to have is all that you are missing. You were young when you picked her, you didn't really know what you wanted, you thought you were going to be adored every day of your life, sex was going to be overflowing to your imagination, you're really missing out on life married to this woman. How stupid could you have been? The devil is cruel. The truth is, most of us don't deserve the wife we have. We are fallen creatures who constantly sin, and really, it's a miracle that our wives love us. Then Doug Weiss goes on to say something that, in my opinion, really got to him. Something that might have planted the seed for him to eventually leave Lisa and marry Joni Lamb. Here's what he wrote. The devil doesn't stop. If you keep listening, you'll start hearing the voice of entitlement creeping in. You know you're entitled to happiness. You're entitled to a happy woman in your life, a cleaner house, more adoration, more sex, smarter, and one who makes more money. You know the drill. This part of the conversation is really tricky. The devil is trying to discourage you from rejoicing in the inheritance you have been graciously given by God the Father, his daughter, your wife. Now let's zoom in on the part where Doug Weiss shares what he did to win against the devil when it came to his love and commitment to Lisa. There are some practical things I do to win this battle. I have a memorized list of 5 great characteristics about my wife. She is absolutely gorgeous. She will never be unfaithful. The best sex of my life has only been with her. She is the greatest mom. She is the total of God's inheritance for me as a lifetime partner. I know these cold. If the devil attacks my wife, I can quote these characteristics back to him. This leads me to the next thing I do. I start praising God for my wife. I break out in spontaneous gratitude toward God for my wife. Thank you that you made Lisa, just for me. Thank you for her eyes, her character, her beauty, her intelligence, endurance of me, great sex, and so on. This really upsets the devil, thwarts his plans, and actually makes you feel closer to your wife when you get home. Also, if you are regularly praying with your wife, sharing your heart, feelings, praising her, and keeping your word, she is probably going to look better to you every day. Now, take a second to really think about those words. Doug was literally warning husbands that if they listen to the wrong voices, they'll start feeling entitled, thinking they deserve more, a better wife, more admiration, more money, more happiness. He called this mindset a trap from the enemy, one that pulls men away from gratitude and commitment to the wife God gave them. But fast forward to now, and what did Doug Weiss do? Exactly what he warned against in this very article. He walked away from his 36-year marriage, left the wife he once called a blessing from God, and suddenly found himself entitled to a happier marriage with Joni Lamb. And now, that article is gone. It's almost like Doug knew that if people connected the dots, they'd realize he didn't just ignore his own advice. He became the very example of what he once preached against. This is why he's scrubbing the internet. This is why his old words are disappearing. Because the more you dig, the clearer it becomes. Doug Weiss is running from his own truth. I want you to take a look at this comment. It's from Karen Relos, a betrayal trauma coach who was personally trained by Doug Weiss. She was responding to the audio clip where Doug claimed he was neglected and abused. Abused, neglected, untouched, all while he's telling his clients and my clients that Lisa is wonderful. I'm a betrayal trauma coach trained under Doug. He didn't tell any of us. He took thousands and thousands of dollars while living a lie. He posted, "Divorce isn't an option." He texted this in 2017 telling the world about it. He still gets butterflies. I guarantee you if Joni lost Daystar and all her money, he wouldn't stay with her or ever have been with her. Lisa made them take down the original Daystar video with Jimmy introducing Doug where they blatantly threw her under the bus. If she was abusive, she couldn't continue working at H2H or run it. Jimmy never talked to her and asked her side of the story. Duh, no brainer. She wanted her marriage and cried out to Doug to try Joni, even told Susie this. They went to Denise Boggs, who said Lisa had hope leaving from there. I believe he only went to say he tried. Joni's the one who suggested it. So, what does that tell you? Denise herself told Joni after that Doug was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Why didn't Doug use his own resources to save his marriage? Why did he decide to go to the gym and abandon her every night? Why did he get involved in weightlifting and diets? Why was he in magazines and competitions? I walk beside abused partners every single day. They have loads of healing to do. I've walked this journey myself. We lose ourselves. We need to rebuild our values and our deep wounds from the abuse. We need time to heal the gaslighting, the lies, the ongoing patterns of harm. Doug is the abuser here. Let's get real. He shows zero signs of being abused. He jumped at the opportunity to leave and divorce his wife right after Marcus died. He was already talking to Joni. He was the first one at the casket. Lisa, nowhere to be found. God didn't give him a miracle to divorce Lisa by people donating money. God doesn't work that way. Just like God didn't tell Doug to buy Joni a Tiffany necklace to make out with her. Why did they lie about their relationship? Why didn't he tell anyone until weeks before they announced their engagement? Why no integrity? No honesty? None of their kids were okay with it. Why did Jimmy say Doug wanted nothing to do with Daystar? Yet he's already co-hosting, had Jonathan's office, and has hid Healing Time Ministry in prime spots. He's making money off of Daystar. The good thing here, he's being exposed. God is exposing all of it. I hope Lisa sees this. I don't buy that he was Andrew in the book. That means he lied to all of us coaches and clinicians too, and trained us under that deception. From my training as an intimacy anorexic coach, he'd be considered reactive intimacy anorexic. Joni says she took it down for her. Lisa told them to take it down. Joni is clueless. She doesn't know what their marriage was like. All adulterers blame their spouse. Karen Relos's comment is damning, not just because she trained under Doug Weiss, but because she has first-hand insight into his methods, his teachings, and now his contradictions. She isn't some outsider throwing accusations. She was one of his own. All adulterers blame their spouse. This is a common pattern seen in people who step out of their marriage. Instead of taking accountability, they shift the blame onto their spouse. And in Doug Weiss's case, that's exactly what he's doing. When someone cheats, emotionally checks out, or abruptly leaves a long-term marriage, they often rewrite the past. Suddenly, everything in the marriage was horrible. Even though they praised their spouse for years, they paint themselves as the victim. They were neglected, unhappy, or unfulfilled the whole time. They demonize their ex. The spouse is suddenly crazy, toxic, or abusive. They justify their actions. They convince themselves and others that they had no choice but to leave. Doug Weiss is following this script word for word.